listening to Real Coaching Radio, building a positive network.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world. Most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org.
Welcome to Unopened Gifts, the weekly one-hour program dedicated to understanding the human potential that lies within us and the abundant life that lies before us. Inspired by the personal journey of our host, James McPartland.
Well, welcome everybody. This is a very exciting day. This happens to be our maiden voyage of our first one-hour show known as Unopened Gifts. Now, I've intended to design this show to inspire people to perhaps shift the paradigm of how they look at life and learn from some people that I've come to admire and respect, those I know and some I don't know, who've learned to live or craft a fulfilling and abundant life. And I'm very pleased to tell you that my first guest today is a gentleman by the name of GPalmer. I've had the good fortune of knowing Greg for, it's almost 10 years. And while I'll tell you a few things about his background, and most of the folks I speak to will have very impressive credentials professionally, Greg is probably one of the finest human beings I've come across. He's been a friend. He's helped provide some, coaching and mentoring when I needed it through some tough times. And I'm honored that he's agreed to be our first guest. Of the few things that Greg has done, he leads a company now that he calls GPalmer and Associates. And he's a highly sought after speaker and consulting in the staffing industry. And Greg is probably known, for those that know him, and there are many in his space, as a guy that turned around a company called Remedy. And they were a staffing business that was in, trouble. Turned that business around, sold it for a very fortuitous price, and has used those lessons learned along the way to help several other companies, public and private, do amazing things in transforming their businesses and profiting, not only personally, professionally, in the world at large. So I'm going to speak to Greg today about some of the things he's learned along the way. I want to find out about his gifts. And I'm sure, Greg, as I introduce you today, there's a few things I missed. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about that journey?
Hey, Mac, thank you, and it's really an honor to be here on your maiden voyage as you described it. I think you did a great job of describing my background and describing some of the things that I worked on. One of my greatest accomplishments you didn't mention, but I'm the proud father of 3 daughters, as well as a wife of over 30 years, and frankly, those are my greatest accomplishments right there.
Well, that's a lot to be proud of. And listen, as we unfold sort of these questions and you unwrap a few gifts for us, I want to invite the viewers and the listeners to make sure that they contact us with any particular questions for myself, or most importantly for you, Greg, on Skype, or they can tap into Real Coaching Radio, or call the studio hotline at 303-872-0503. We'll be looking forward to some of the questions and comments. Now, Greg, I shared a little bit about your story, and that's just the Cliff Notes version. And the thing about business and business professionals, we get to talk a lot about success, and that tends to sell a lot of newspapers. But probably like anybody who's done amazing things in their life, I'm sure there's been some lessons and some setbacks and some things that you've learned along the way. Could you touch on a few of those things, and probably important in that, in light of the theme of our show, Unopened Gifts? Would you talk a little bit about the gifts that you recognize that you have, or that you learned that you have, and when you learned in particular what gifts you had or what attributes you had that could make the most difference to your life and other people, and perhaps how you employed those gifts through the journey in your career?
Well, Mac, that's an interesting question, and let me begin with probably, it may not seem like it the way I'm about to describe it, but probably the greatest gift I ever received from a business perspective really started when I went to Remedy and had the opportunity to turn the company around. And the reason I describe it that way was when I joined the company, it was one of the most respected firms in our space. Things were going well. We were making all kinds of money. We had just gone public, and I was joining the company to to help in that entire effort. The interesting thing about the gift was the fact that soon after joining the company, soon discovered that the company had some major problems, particularly as it related to workers' comp. And the gift at the time was really the fact that we went from a very profitable company to a very unprofitable company in the course of a quarter. And so it was, I didn't really consider it so much a gift at that moment, but just the opportunity to work through a difficult situation with a terrific team taught me lessons that if I had, if I hadn't had that opportunity, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be as knowledgeable in certain things. I think a lot of times that you learn a lot from your challenges and some of the mountains you need to climb, and so that was from a business standpoint one of the greatest gifts I ever had. Didn't seem like it at the time, though.
Listen, as you described it, I think it's important, very important for all of us to recognize that the lessons come not so much from the things we do right as the things that set us back. And at the time, we don't necessarily recognize that those setbacks or those lessons that we are due to learn are there to serve us in an amazing way on a go-forward basis, whether it is to help us in our journey or to help others. Are there things beside that very important setback that you just described, if you looked back over your career and said, here were some real disappointments or setbacks that I had to really tap into my gifts or my strengths or learn to shift how I looked at things in order to move or progress things forward?
So I think what is the term? Unanswered prayers, I think is a common term. I think one of the greatest setbacks was early in my career when I really wanted a particular job. Okay, I had my heart set on this job. I was ready to move from my hometown to take the job, uproot the family, and it was between myself and another very capable candidate, and I didn't get the job. And I have to tell you, I thought it was, you're 30 years old, you think it's the end of the world, that this wonderful opportunity, I wasn't selected for, and I took it really, really hard. And Mac, it was by far the best thing that ever happened to me, because shortly thereafter, I found my way into the staffing industry almost by chance. And I had I've had a wonderful 25 years here, but I was previously in a manufacturing industry that at the time had a lot going for it, and I just so wanted that job, and it just didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards for me. And shortly thereafter, that door closed, another door opened, and here we are today talking about things, and it just didn't seem. It wasn't a very fun couple of months licking my wounds on that.
I'm sure at the time you didn't know that was going to be one of the greatest things that could have happened to you. And tell me this, because we get a chance to share a little bit about your professional life. But maybe like most of us, and I think you and I have had this conversation about often asking ourselves, what do we want to be when we grow up, even at this stage of our life. But as a young man growing up, talk a little bit about where you grew up and maybe some of the things you thought you'd be doing at this stage of life, and maybe a little bit about that history that probably played a pretty pivotal role in the man you've become today.
Gotcha. Well, I'm proud to say that I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, actually a little suburb called Mount Clemens, Michigan. For some of your radio listeners, they may know where that is, but it was a great place to grow up because it was really the middle of America. We were, a middle class family, and neither my father didn't graduate even from high school. Worked for Chrysler for a number of years, and started out on the shop floor, and then got into the accounting, found his way into the accounting department. My mom also worked as a secretary there, and it was a great place to grow up. But we we grew up. One of my passions that I'm sure will come up, and if you don't ask the question, I'm going to tell you, is to play golf. And it didn't start out that way. I really thought I was going to be a baseball player. The Detroit Tigers and all that exciting things and that go along with baseball. I really thought I was going to be a baseball player, but I found out that by the time I got to be 12 or 13, there were a lot of good baseball players. So I took up the game of golf, and at that time, not like today, there weren't that many golfers, and I grew up next to a golf course, caddying for some terrific golfers, and learned the game, and ended up getting a golf scholarship. And I really thought, to your question, I really thought I was going to be a golf pro. I thought at that time Arnold Palmer was my hero, no relation to me, but I really thought, that maybe, that was high hopes. But it was a great experience going to college. I went to college in a place called Morehead State in Kentucky, and it was terrific. But I didn't think I would have really been in business. I thought my world would have been in the sports world. And again, a good thing it didn't happen, because I would have been a starving golfer.
But you still play.
I try very hard to play as often as I can, and get great enjoyment out of it. But even there, I don't. I just get great enjoyment, and the competition is fun, but not. I don't take it too awful seriously anymore.
Well, I know you as a man who's done some pretty significant things, and you are a great athlete and a great family man. Along the journey, particularly as we come back to the business side of life and the turnaround of that company and the sale of that company and some key advisory roles to some other public companies, perhaps you can talk a little bit about maybe if the golf lessons of life served you, or probably another way to look at it is a question of how is it that here's what I'm going to plant to seed. I'll give you a chance to prepare for this one. I want to know how, in the work that you did, which is all consuming, you were able to balance, if such a word exists, family and personal health. But I do have to take care of a couple of the sponsors that are pawing the ground like cage lions. We're going to go to a commercial break real quick, and when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit about how Greg Palmer balanced it all on his quest to success.
Sounds good.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Need someone to ignite the torch of human potential in your company, group, or organization? We all need a fresh perspective from time to time, and the right speaker who possesses the vast references of experience and insight can stoke the fires in the hearts of those who long to make a significant contribution. Book the speaker, the author, and the inspired leader, James McPartland, who has been known to ignite the torch of human potential in people all around the world. Contact the JMac Performance Group to learn more at www.jamesmcpartland.com.
Now, welcome back, everybody.
Discover how to create your extraordinary life with personal coaching sessions and all the ongoing support you'll need to define your vision, realize success, and create your extraordinary life. Join our online Ask a Coach program and connect with one of our expert coaches in the areas of health, personal finance, relationships, personal growth, environment, career, and spirituality. Go to www.askacoach.us and register.
What is the human potential in your business? Do your employees, co-workers, or team members get to play to their strengths on a consistent basis? What if the people in your organization maximize their talents in aligning with the goals and objectives of your company? A Gallup poll shows that 75% of employees in U.S. companies do not use their gifts, tools, or talents in a way that inspires their everyday and overall performance. Don't let this be you or your company. Contact our team at www.jamesmcpartland.com for an evaluation on where you stand and what it would take to unlock the human potential in your business.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio, building a positive network.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is James McPartland, your host of the show called Unopened Gifts. I'm happy to be presenting this inaugural show with my good friend and esteemed colleague, Mr. Greg Palmer. Prior to the break, I had asked Greg many questions, the last of which had to do with how is it in a career that spanned a number of years with a great number of victories and successes, he was able to take care of raising 3 lovely daughters, take good care of a wife, and also take care of his health. We talked a little bit about his golf career right before we went to break. Raising 3 great daughters who all went to fine universities and have become outstanding in their own right takes a little bit of time. And that time was dedicated, could have gone in many places. So Greg, could you share a little bit about how you struck the chord of balance, if balance does exist?
Well, Mac, that's a tough question. I'm not sure balance exists in the most empirical sense of the comment, but I think I certainly tried to have balance, and sometimes I did, and oftentimes I failed at balance. I was always aware when I was failing at it, and it bothered me a lot, and sometimes it couldn't be helped. But I think, to be really candid with you, the single greatest gift probably ever in my life was, when I got married to my wife Sally, because she frankly brought so much balance. She's a very different person than I am, and that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. But when we started our lives together, started our family together, she took on a huge role in helping me to have balance. She took care of the entire family. One of the things that she insisted on, probably the greatest gift she ever gave me, she always insisted on, when I was in town, that I will come home for dinner and have dinner with the family. And you're having a problem or an opportunity, and it's 6 o'clock, and you should be heading home. It's always easy sometimes to linger behind it and take care of just that one last thing. But with her coaching and prodding, had many dinners together when I was in town, and I think that really probably helped me maintain as much family balance as possible, and personal balance, and just the benefit of being around the girls and being around Sally. And I think, so that was a big part of it. And then I also, in my first job in staffing, I had my first office was next door to a famous hamburger restaurant in Louisville, Kentucky, the place where you ate these big hamburgers. So just about every day at lunch, I went in and ate hamburgers. And the reason to tell a story is I gained about 40 pounds my first year in the job, and I went to play basketball. I love to play basketball. When you live in Kentucky, you have to play basketball and follow basketball. And I found out I couldn't play. I thought I was going to collapse. So after that one pickup game of basketball, I started to jog. I knew I needed to do something. I just gained 40 pounds, and I went from about 180 pounds to about 220 pounds. And so when I was about 30 years old, and even to this day, I try to jog 3 to 4 times a week, not at a fast pace. Most people wouldn't even call it jogging anymore. They might call it a fast walk, but I get out there, try. And so I think between the balance that the family gave and Sally gave, in terms of allowing me to do some of the things that I needed to do, as well as doing the exercise, I shed the pounds, and it really helped me to sleep better, helped me feel better about myself, gave me more strength and energy to do my job and be with the family. And so I tried the best I could during those years to, have as much balance as we can. We did a number of family vacations and things like that every year. But it's difficult to achieve that.
Well, listen, I think what's interesting, and as you would well know, and I could share with some of the listeners here, is the bulk of my professional career was in the health and fitness business, in manufacturing exercise equipment and traveling the world trying to make people healthy and fit. And I learned along the way that business is business, and even if you're in that type of business, it's very hard to take good care of yourself. And funny enough, if you don't take care of yourself, that doesn't set a great example for other people, and it's very hard to be efficient and productive when you don't really feel well. But yet, if you looked at the statistics in our country and around the world of cardiovascular disease and obesity, and even though intellectually we get it, we can't seem to make time for it. And so I admire what you've done in terms of your accomplishments, both off the business path, on the golf course, and with your family, because there's a lot to learn from that. So I'd like to say that out of all the things I've learned from you, and maybe the viewers learned from you, is a commitment to family and to your health. It's probably something that's going to have you live to at least 105.
Oh God, wouldn't that be fun? And really, one of the things, I don't know if it's a gift, frankly, but one of the things that I learned when I was 18 years old, my father passed away of a heart attack. And when I got to be 30, I weighed about as much as he did. He was overweight, and at that time smoked, and would have a martini after work, that kind of thing. And when I was 30, I said, I don't want that to happen to me, frankly. And that's when I started the exercise regime. And frankly, there were some stretches in there where I wasn't perfect and wasn't as diligent in all the areas that I just described, but I was driven back to those. And whenever I got out of bounds, so to speak, I got equilibrium by getting back centered with the family, getting back centered with the exercise, getting back to the fundamentals, the real basics, nothing fancy. And that's when I felt most grounded and had the most control, and just felt like I could accomplish things that I couldn't when things were spinning out of control, and they did spin a few times.
Well, let me ask you this, Greg, because one of my great lessons learned, or gifts that was opened maybe a little bit late in life, was I believed for a long time, particularly a lot of time in the professional community and endeavoring to build a business, that I had to have a closet full of pressed Superman capes, and at the time I thought it was a sign of weakness to ask for help, that I had to have all of the answers. And as I've come to know you, I would think that perhaps your approach would have been different. And I'm curious to know, if you looked back at life, or maybe even in your present life, if there are folks that you look to as coaches or mentors, how did you use people in your life to help you navigate through things that if you don't have experience, you're not really exactly sure always what to do?
Yeah, but that's a big question. That's a full question. But I was fortunate from a business standpoint to have gone to work for some tremendous mentors that taught me the business and helped me grow. So I had some very good examples to follow from that perspective. Once I became the leader, though, that's when it became a little bit more difficult, because where does the leader go, right? When you're a junior person, when you're just getting started, there's usually people ahead of you that have been there and done that, and you can learn things from them if you attach yourself to the right people. And I was fortunate enough in several instances to be able to do that. But what do you do once you become a leader? And I found value in a couple of areas. One, I was very fortunate when I was 40 to join a group called YPO. And in YPO, it's a group of all CEOs or presidents, and they're all leaders. So that was a great group to network with. And one of the foundations within YPO is that you join a forum, and within your forum, you get together on a monthly basis and discuss issues. And the group helps to hold you accountable. So one of my recommendations for people is to find a group. It doesn't have, there's many of them out there, but a group that you can identify with that can help to hold you accountable, that can help provide valuable insights into whatever it is you're interested in. And in that case, YPO is primarily a business-centered group. And so that was very, very valuable, particularly at crucial times. And you never know when they're going to be, but that group was there for me at very crucial and important times. Another group I've recently joined and helped form is I get together with people that we call ourselves a mastermind group. And within our mastermind group, we get together on a regular scheduled basis, and we do the same thing. And what brings us together is our profession. We're basically a loose band of consultants that are leading groups, but it's a very focused group that shares a lot of the same frustrations, a lot of the same opportunities, and we learn from each other. And so I still do the YPO. I've joined this mastermind group, and I found tremendous benefit of the wisdom of being around people that have accomplished greater things than I have and have seen different things than I've experienced. So I would highly recommend to join different networking groups that can really value, they can really help you to make decisions and lead your life.
What's interesting, Greg, about how that description is, in my own personal experience, and I think we share some commonalities there, is I found myself, which I think is your reference point here, is when you get around a group of people that perhaps have similar interests but yet different backgrounds and different perspectives, who will be very honest with you. Not so much to tell you the things you want to hear, but sometimes people know us better than we know ourselves, or sometimes we think we're fooling people in terms of our image or our status or our accomplishments or our disguising our setbacks. And I suspect there's a lot of value in people who you can trust, who will be real with you and give you some insights as to ways to perhaps look at life to help you along the way. Sometimes it could be a little bit painful. I know I've been punched in the nose a few times, but it's been more meaningful to me to have people that I can trust and tell me those things. That's made a difference in my life. I suspect that's similar for your experience.
Yeah, well, absolutely. When you think about, if you're sitting in a group of, let's just say, 10 people, you have a chance to present a situation, either a good situation or a challenging situation. You've got 9 people. That's 9 hours of free consulting time from people who really care about you and who have vastly different experiences than you. That's incredibly impactful. And one of the mistakes I made early on in my career is I really felt that much of my success was derived from having to maybe make it happen myself, maybe having to come up with the right idea all the time, or win the big sale, whatever it might have been. I felt tremendous burden that I had. I'm the leader. I need to have all the answers. And I can tell you, the older I get, the more I realize that I don't have all the answers, never will have all the answers. But if I have got a tight network of people I trust, it makes finding the answers much easier, solving the problems much easier. And early on, you kind of aggressive. I was kind of aggressive, trying to climb the corporate ladder, and really missed that. I think I made some major mistakes by not being a bit more sensitive to the value, the wisdom of teams, and the wisdom of people around me at an earlier age. The older I get, I get tremendous value from it.
Well, let me tell you, we've got the first questions come in from the audience. This one actually comes in from the network. And the question here is, I guess it looks like we've been talking a little bit about external references. The question is, when is it time, or what have you done to go inside, perhaps the personal development side of things, distinction from the outside folks that we've been talking about, the groups that have helped along the way? Can you talk a little bit about the personal journey inside, if you will, in developing yourself, which is further reinforced by finding and unwrapping your gifts?
Well, if you mean by going inside, maybe the personal development that I continually go through and went through in the past, I think I always found it extremely valuable to attend conferences that I found were of interest and gaining insights from the subject matter experts at different conferences. I'm in my office here, and I've got a library of books that I've found extremely helpful on various topics that I've pulled out at various times. Books like Good to Great from Jim Collins, Execution by Larry Bossidy, The 5 Dysfunctions of the Team by Lindsay Coney. Those are some classics that I refer to today. I've read them several times. Some of the interesting things in my youngest daughter's trying to teach me. She's a bit of a social media expert, but there's a tremendous amount, as you know, on the internet, and I find tremendous resources out there in some of these social networking groups. One of my favorite sites is TED. TED has such wonderful, rich vignettes on various topics, on motivation, on happiness, on on global warming. You name the topic, but there's world-renowned experts on there. It's free. I love there's a number of magazines I read on a weekly basis, and always like to read the Journal and the New York Times and periodicals like that. I take my little Kindle with me when I travel, so it's constantly trying. I guess it helps to have a natural curiosity on things, and I think it's important to take it upon yourself to stay current. And with curiosity, I think you'll discover along the way a lot of valuable information that otherwise you wouldn't.
As you make those distinctions, I find that I'm still learning quite a bit about myself. And as I said to you, I often ask people, no matter what walk of life or what age they are, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I think as you climb mountains and down valleys and back up mountains in life, you see things differently, and experience is a great teacher, even when that experience is painful experience. But it's interesting, at this stage of the game, in the game of life, you've had let's just say, as they would say, a bite of the apple. You've done well by many standards of business accomplishment and, let's say, abundance. How do you stay motivated now? And maybe that's a little bit inside, a little bit outside. And what's left? What do you want to do, see, accomplish? There's a vast wealth of resource of knowledge and experience there. How do you want to employ it now?
Yeah, that was the question I asked myself over and over again in 2006 after we sold the company. We sold the business in 2006, and I took 6 months off and asked myself a lot of those same questions that you just asked me. And one of the things that I did was, again, I mentioned the mastermind group. One of the things we all did in the group, we put together kind of a second half of life plan. And one of the components of the plan is a scorecard. So we created we each have our own personal scorecard, and by developing the scorecard, it helped me think through some of the answers to the questions that you raised. So basically, put together a little plan. Okay, and some of the key components within my plan today have to do with primarily centered around two areas. One is passing along the gifts of whatever wisdom and life experience I have with my children. I'm very fortunate to be involved in their lives. My oldest daughter started a business in the therapy business that I play a small role in. My second daughter works in a nonprofit where they help at-risk youth to become employable, learn new skills. It's a great group called Tire San Jose. And then my youngest daughter, she helps me figure out this whole social media thing. So I'm extremely blessed. But by being around them, I feel that in a small way, I have a chance to impart a lot of life lessons, and some good and some bad, right? In terms of, I made this mistake 10 years ago, or when I was trying to do something similar to what you were doing, this was my experience, and this was the outcome. Now, you need to make your own decision, but I would maybe turn left. It looks like you're veering right. Maybe we should think about turning left. So that's a big focus of on a personal level. The second is really in my consulting business. I've got about a dozen clients, really terrific clients, and I really feel fortunate to be part of their companies and advise them. And I just feel like I'm helping them achieve their goals. We always sit down, put together a strategy when we begin the engagement, and they're always, without exception, they're all trying to accomplish specific goals. And I feel very fortunate to be part of that. So I feel that I can contribute and share by my experiences. And I've stayed in the staffing space predominantly because I know that business. And so, and then on a personal level with my wife, we've created a little bucket list of things we want to do. We just have taken a great family vacation, and that was on our bucket list. So we've checked that off, and we've got a couple more that we want to do. And so it's a little bit about balance. It's a little bit about sharing from your life experience and keeping it centered around people you want to be with and enjoy being around. And so I feel fortunate to, at 54 be working still and contributing still, and with really hopefully no end in the immediate sight, because it's fun and rewarding.
Well, and I think as you speak of that journey and the recent family vacation, it is interesting how you develop interest in new things. If I'm not mistaken, photography has been a new addition here in this stage of life. Is that correct?
Well, I try. I've got my second daughter, Laura. She's the photography expert. Has taken multiple classes, and she dragged me to a class before we went on our trip. And I can turn the camera on and I can turn the camera off. Between those two, I have to refer to other people, but I really do enjoy it. And I try really hard. I'm not very good, but it's kind of complicated actually. All the little buttons and all the things you can do, and so I get a lot of pleasure out of trying to figure some of those things out.
So you're no longer using Instamatic or trying to maintain film?
Well, I still, it's kind of both. I use kind of both. I use the fancy camera with the lenses for part of it, but then when we were in instantaneous spots, I pulled out my BlackBerry and took a number of pictures with my phone, with my cell phone. It was kind of both. So it's not one or the other. And both, I think, in their own way, were very appropriate.
So might there be an art gallery somewhere in the distant future, not so distant future, where your works will be hanging?
I doubt it. I doubt it.
All right, so it's not that much of a passion. So let me switch gears on you a little bit. So, there's probably a pretty vast and eclectic mixture of folks that are tuned in and listening that could be at various stages of life and of choices. And, as I take some wisdom from your gifts of what you shared through your journey in life, I think one of the most important things that comes through is honesty and truth. And if you were to sort of give some perspective to people out in the marketplace, obviously you can't see them, and I say marketplace probably in the listening audience here, about ways to look at life or things that have served you, whether that be, let me ask you, for example, when we spoke earlier before this interview, we talked a little bit about having the courage to be an entrepreneur or taking up business for yourself, or maybe you could speak a little bit about that and how you might advise people to reach inside and do what they're gifted to do, and how to face fears or overcome fears.
Sure. Well, I think as it relates to one of the, I had a great opportunity. I was the CEO of a publicly traded company, and we had a wonderful exit within that company. But one of the things that I regretted and I always wished I had been able to do, I think it comes from my father. He always wanted to have a business of his own, and he always talked about it. He never had the money, and he had a pretty good job at Chrysler, and just couldn't quite get it together. And then unfortunately passed when he was in his 40s. I always thought, well, someday I'll have my own business. Well, start having a family, and the career goes pretty well, and before you know it, you're almost 50, I was 49 years old when we sold the company. I never quite got around to starting my business. So I'm thrilled now that I've had a business for almost 4 years. I'm thrilled that my younger brother has a business that we work on a lot together in. My oldest daughter has a business that we get to work together in. It's always nice when you can be the advisor and they do the work. That's the kind of that's some other wisdom to share with the group. But seriously, I wished I had maybe taken some risks, but just didn't. And now I get to do it, and so I'm thrilled that even at my stage, it's not too late, and I'm having a great time and learning, and all the technology. We're talking on Skype, and we're using Google Docs and doing all kinds of crazy things that are free, and it's really kind of it's a changed world. I would say that's probably on a personal level, to figure out a way to separate yourself from some of your fears and follow your passion if you can. And if your passion is to start a business, great. If it's to do other things, that's fine as well. And in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, he talks about the 3 circles of success, and it's the combination where passion, as well as being the best, being really focused, having passion for something, and being the best at something, where those circles intersect each other, is really where I think most people are going to find their happiness and their greatest amount of success. And I never quite got there as it related to my business, because I work for the shareholders, and now I get to do it on my behalf, and I get to do it with private companies primarily. So that would be, I don't know if that's a lesson or if that's, I would just say the ability to focus and not get too distracted and continue to pursue your goal is really one of the lessons that I'd like to share. And it's one of the lessons that I learn every day with my oldest daughter. She came to me the other day. She said, "Dad, one of my friends asked me, what are you going to do if your business doesn't work out?" So the business has been around about a year, and it's going great. And she told her friend, she said, "Dad, I told him there is no plan B." And it made my day. It made my week. And that's how, she's very focused. She's very passionate, and she's going to be a tremendous success. And she's already very successful. But it's just that will to pursue things even when things aren't all that easy at times.
Well, on behalf of your wife, Sally, I'm sure that's where it came from.
I think that's right. I think that's exactly right.
Well, Greg, hold on to your thoughts. I have a few more questions for you. We're going to go back to a commercial break.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
What is the human potential in your business? Do your employees, co-workers, or team members get to play to their strengths on a consistent basis? What if the people in your organization maximize their talents in aligning with the goals and objectives of your company? A Gallup poll shows that 75% of employees in U.S. companies do not use their gifts, tools, or talents in a way that inspires their everyday and overall performance. Don't let this be you or your company. Contact our team at www.jamesmcpartland.com for an evaluation on where you stand and what it would take to unlock the human potential in your business.
Discover how to create your extraordinary life with personal coaching sessions and all the ongoing support you'll need to define your vision, realize success, and create your extraordinary life. Join our online Ask a Coach program and connect with one of our expert coaches in the areas of health, personal finance, relationships, personal growth, environment, career, and spirituality. Go to www.askacoach.us and register. Need someone to ignite the torch of human potential in your company, group, or organization? We all need a fresh perspective from time to time, and the right speaker who possesses the vast references of experience and insight can stoke the fires in the hearts of those who long to make a significant contribution. Book the speaker, the author, and the inspired leader, James McPartland, who has been known to ignite the torch of human potential in people all around the world. Contact the JMAC Performance Group to learn more at www.jamesmcpartland.com.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Welcome back, everybody, to the maiden voyage of Unopened Gifts. Our special guest today, Mr. Greg Palmer. Greg has been kind enough to dedicate his time and give us this hour for Q&A to talk a lot about his gifts, what he's learned along the journey, and to share that with our viewing and listening audience. I have the opportunity to ask him a few more questions before we wrap up the first show. And, Greg, I've been thinking about what you shared with us. And one of my personal observations over time, in no matter where an individual is, male or female, wherever they stand sort of in the hierarchy of business life accomplishments, is that I've yet to meet anybody, if they're really honest, who doesn't have fear, who's not afraid. And perhaps there's a fallacy or misunderstanding that you get to a certain stage in life and fear goes away. I think everybody's afraid. And perhaps the difference of those that seek or realize abundance or fulfillment or their own personal opportunities or potential, or folks that act in spite of or just push through. But that's always been easier said than done. Are there still things, do you face fear? And how do you overcome fear if you do? And how would you suggest others slay the fear dragon to the extent it exists in their life?
Well, for me personally, fear, I don't know if it's healthy or not, but on a personal level, fear was always a very positive motivator for me. I think I was a little bit, I always maybe got a little bit ahead of myself maybe a few times in my career. And when I did that, I experienced tremendous fear of failure, to be very honest with you. And that can be positive or that can be negative, and it was both for me at times. But I think more positive because I didn't want to fail, but I was afraid I was going to fail. And what I learned from that is the more you prepared, the more you faced the brutal facts of the situation, and the more you surrounded yourself with people that could really help you, the journey became much easier. But I think for me, fear has always played a role in motivating me to achieve and to get through some difficult situations. When I play golf, I'm still always nervous on the first tee in a golf tournament. It never goes away, but it's good to have the jitters sometimes, right? And so I think the jitters, the excitement behind that is for me at least more positive than negative, but it's always there, and it's always real. Well,
I'm glad I'm not alone then, because I feared you wouldn't show up today, and I would have to interview myself. I'd have a lot of fun, but I'd probably lose a lot of viewers.
I was fearful that I couldn't get the computer to work, so we both were a little fearful.
That's right. So, I go back to sort of the journeys and overcoming fears, and thinking about, again, the folks that are tuned into our show today. Is there a pearl of wisdom, maybe that's the phrase, or something that you learned along the way that had someone inserted that into your mind or brain or given you that gift of knowledge sooner rather than later, it might have served you to your benefit, obviously, and the benefit of others. But is there something in life you learned that you wish you would have learned a little bit earlier?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I think that there's been a number of books recently written about success and about people who have achieved great success. And without a doubt, there's three or four of them out there. The names escape me right now, but I think one of them is called "Talent is Overrated." I thought that you had to have a tremendous amount of talent in your chosen profession or in your whatever it was you're trying to do to be successful. And what these books have proven, and after being around a long time, I feel the books prove out, the statistics prove out that it's not the talent, it's the time and the focused effort in the right way that will produce the results. Whatever, great chess player, great musician, great actor, great business person. They say you need about 10,000 hours of practice to really excel at to really excel, to be on the outlier type of performance metric. And so I wish I had known that because I didn't have enough talent, didn't have enough smarts, I didn't go to the right college, all the things that get into your mind. And I wish somebody had said, if you practice hard but you have to practice in an intelligent way, in the right way, it'll likely turn out well for you. So that would be the one pearl, that the talent is overrated, but effort and practice are not.
That's a great point. I've come across many people in my life who I thought were unusually gifted, and they made life and things look easy, whether that was an author, a speaker, an actor, a business person, and I've come to find through my own journey, and as you just described, and folks I have come to really admire, they probably, it might be fair to say, outwork or outprepare most anybody else. And it's just the determination to want it more than someone else, to put in the extra hours, miles, kilometers, whatever you call it. And I think that's a very good point. Further, if you were to, again, tap into the audience here, I think, we're surrounded by opportunities. You talked about technology and the impact of technology. I think there's often a belief, maybe some would say a fallacy, that we have to wait for external events to be a certain way before we can engage or take advantage of opportunities. But perhaps there's another way to look at that. My suspicion would be, given your outcomes and success, you didn't wait for the external factors. You seized opportunity. Somebody else might have seen challenges and obstacles, a la the situation that you described in the company being financially almost insolvent. You saw opportunity. What's the difference there, and how could you prepare, or how would you recommend someone look at things differently, so whereby which they may be surrounded by opportunities if they just shifted the focus a little bit?
Many of us are taught, I was taught, that you want to attach yourself to a rising tide, a group that's going in a positive direction, and that way it'll increase your chances of success. And that's certainly one way to approach it, and that's certainly a very valid proposition. The opposite of that is also very true. If you take a look at today's world, you take a look at, just say, commercial real estate, that the price of commercial real estate has gone down dramatically. Well, you can look at that and say, wow, it's gone down dramatically, and that's a difficult place to invest or be a professional in that. Or you can look at it and say, the chances are, the risk of it going down more is not that great. The risk of not getting involved in that and missing the opportunity on the upside is much greater. So that was really a huge lesson, a huge gift by the Remedy situation. It was, we were almost on our last leg, and there was only one way for us to go. So when you're at that point, the chances of going up after you've hit rock bottom are much greater, because once you're at the bottom, there's no place else to go. So there's a lot of opportunities in today's world in businesses and investments and in other areas that weren't there. I mean, when you go through a bubble situation that we just went through, and things are becoming back to a more level of equilibrium in a lot of the markets, there's tremendous opportunities. Even though you might feel beat up on that journey on the way down, that's where most of the opportunities are going to. I'll give you an example of a company that I was involved in, a coffee company called Dietrich's Coffee. We were on our last leg in terms of our ability to actually buy coffee beans. And our chairman, Paul Heshin, invested additional capital into the business because he believed so deeply into these little, they call them K-cups, that we were really getting good at. We weren't good at them yet, but he believed so deeply, he kept investing into that business, and eventually that business turned around, and it turned out to be the number one stock on any of the stock exchanges last year before we sold the business to Green Mountain. And a tremendous example of having faith, commitment, and passion behind something that you deeply believed in. But we were on the bottom, and there's only one place to go, and that was up. And so a lot of lessons to be learned in when things are the darkest.
Well, yeah, as I said, I think it's interesting. If you look at the press accounts and the media, there's often sensationalism around success. What is often not spoken about is how one could be on their knees or at the brink of evaporating. That doesn't always get the press. And I have to tell you, Greg, you have been a great first guest today by sharing many of the things that I'm sure folks have not known about you, that those who do know you. And for the listening and viewing audience, many pearls of wisdom that I hope folks have 2 or 3, or if not 5 things to take away and give careful consideration about, because you shared some great gifts for everybody today. And so you did me a great favor and a great honor to this emerging program by sharing your gifts. And I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank a gentleman by the name of Steve Toth, who actually helped provide this opportunity so that we could open up a new channel, bring in new types of individuals, so that we could all share our unopened gifts and help make a difference in the world. Greg, you've been terrific.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much, my friend. You were outstanding. Keep opening your gifts.
It can only go up from here, right? After this guest.
Well, that's right. You listen. You don't know, and we can keep talking because I think we're going to get thrown off the air here in a moment. But now this could open up a whole new dynamic for you. I suspect outside your window right now could be the National Enquirer, People Magazine, a number of folks quite interested in some of the gifts that you didn't talk about.
Oh yes. The Orange County Police Department included in that. Absolutely. But no, it was a pleasure, and I wish you much success in your radio and television profession. And I can't wait to read your book when it comes out. I know it's from what I've seen so far, it's going to be a tremendous read, and I'm excited about the journey you're on, and some of the great stories you tell, and some of the really interesting areas that you explore. It's going to be fun to watch your career continue to grow and prosper. And I'm excited. I'm excited for you in all the things that you're doing.
Well, Greg, thanks. One of the great unopened gifts has now been opened, and that's you. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time. Have a good evening. Everybody will be back next week, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, for the second show of Unopened Gifts. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Today's podcast is brought to you by ObesityHotline.com, the silent killer, providing support and encouragement in the prevention of this rising epidemic. Featuring the Body by Vi Challenge. Is there a quick answer to the question? Go to www.obesityhotline.com.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio, building a positive network.
Intro.
It hasn't been easy
for me too. And I want you to know that you're a hero to me, as I've been watching what you're going through. I've watched you fight this battle, I've seen you do your best, vanquishing your enemies and casting them aside.